Okay, let's get started. Okay, so today's session is on how to know you're in a fear response. And this is all about reconnecting to the body. Often we can be really busy in our life doing our things that we need to do, whether we've got kids, whether we have certain work that's really demanding, or chores around the house, whatever it is, health challenges. We're often in our mind thinking about like what we need to do next, and our mind is often in control. So what this session is about is it's all about what would it be like if I was to slow down and check into my body to know whether I'm slightly in a fear response, so slightly aroused in that fear response. And because it can be on a scale. So going into this, the fear response is generally we can have a physiological adrenaline rush when, maybe you're about to step on a snake, or maybe you have a phobia of spiders and you see a spider. So you all of a sudden get this big adrenaline rush. That's a real clear sign that we're in a fear response. Maybe we're running away from an aggressive dog. Those are really clear, and we know that that's, we're scared, right? Whereas when it comes to the more subtleties, what we will find is that, oh my God, sorry. Here we go. What we will find is it's more difficult to know if we're in a fear response when it's subtle, because it might be just a slight increase in heart rate. It might be your breathing either gets deeper or slower, or maybe faster. So depending on where you are, and we'll go into this today. I'm going to do a little practice with you too. So everyone has a natural fear response, and it's an activation in the nervous system, and this gets triggered when we're in real danger. Now we all know that this is an innate thing we're born with to survive in this world. Whereas what happens is past events, experiences, trauma, woundings imprint in the body, and when they're repeated, they form conditioning and shape how we perceive safety. So the imprint can be generally that's the fear response has been activated. So something's happened when we're younger, or maybe at school, or maybe after school, that's been really scary. And that's created an imprint in our nervous system because it's unresolved. And then let's say that we grow up in a household where it's repeatedly something has been imprinted. So like it's a repeated thing. We might be fear-based parenting, shamed, that sort of thing. That's when it becomes a conditioned form. And that's generally where we start to create belief systems around that, like I'm not good enough, I'm too much, all those sort of belief systems that come up once we've been conditioned in a certain way. So it perceives our ability to feel safe or unsafe. And sometimes we're not actually seeing the situation for what it is. We're quite hyper vigilant to certain situations, but it might not be unsafe. It just feels unsafe in the body. So that's what I'm speaking more into today, is when the fear response is more of a conditioned imprint rather than in this immediate moment. We are all safe in this immediate moment, but we might notice, which I'll go to the next slide, if you check in, there might be a little bit of nervousness because it might be your first time on here. Maybe just before you hopped on, you may have noticed a little bit of unease. Your thinking might have been like, oh, do I really want to go? Maybe I don't need to go. Oh, I'm a bit curious though. So just noticing, like if you checked into your body, even in this time, you can close your eyes if you feel comfortable and go in and just notice, what is my breathing like? What am I noticing with my heart? What is my heart rate like? And for me personally, as I'm facilitating this masterclass, I have a little bit of excitement in me to do this, or else I kind of would be like a little bit, just telling you what we're doing today, and I'd be a little bit flat. So that excitement is good for me to be slightly excited in that. But what I notice in that is there's a little bit of heart rate increase, a little bit of tension in my upper body, there was a little nervousness before I came on, a bit of unease. So that to me would tell me that I'm in fight flight, but it's mild. It's on the scale. It's probably just a little slight fight flight, and I've got a part of my system online which is regulated, which is why I can observe this and I can communicate with you still. If I was on the other side of the scale where I was completely terrified and I was in fight flight, I would not be able to communicate to you because that part of my brain would not be working properly. It would be in survival mode, and all I could do would be I would either want to run, fight, or flee, as I said, run. So just checking in and noticing where you are. So what this example here is an example how fight flight can be from a previous experience. So a client experiences social anxiety, and through counselling, it reveals that their fear stems from a past experience of being mocked in class. It's really common for social anxiety to be mocked, bullied, also parenting where it's like shame-based parenting, so teasing, that sort of thing. And we can have this social anxiety. So their nervous system is reacting from a flight state, not to the present moment. So the example is I'm going into a social situation that's not where people are going to mock me, but I'm hyper vigilant to that. And also I'm in a fear response because it reminds me of school. The heightened experience is filtered through the lens of feelings of powerlessness, shame, or hurt, and thinking becomes reactive rather than responsive, which we will go into today. Activation work is when we explore the experience that has created this fear response. So the activation work I do, it explores why do I have this activation, this conditioning, this imprint, and what do I need to know about it? So we feel it, we witness it, we connect with it, and go underneath the fear response. Many of us in life, before we start to do the inner work, we can actually be mostly reacting from our fear rather than the actual feelings below the fear, which we'll go into. What is missing from the experience to create resolve? And then we use this, so I use different techniques to create, I can't see what I've written, to create resolve and reduce the intensity of the activation. So often when we work on certain activations, let's say, for example, the social anxiety in this experience, as you get to know why it's there, you witness it, you feel it, you process that experience, when you go into social events again, it might mean that you still get activated, but it won't be as scary. And the reason it's not as scary, it's because you have more of an understanding of what's happening inside you, which you feel more in control and more powerful in that space, because you can also have a plan of boundaries, like I'll only go for an hour, so you won't overstimulate your nervous system. You'll have more of your needs met in that environment too, so it feels more balanced out as well. So let's talk about what I will be discussing today. I might need to go a little quicker through it because there's a lot there. But the benefits of noticing and responding to fear rather than reacting, why it's hard to respond rather than react, how to notice fear in your body, how to communicate when you're scared. So this is one of the most important things. Who is safe to be vulnerable with, and a check-in guide for feeling your triggers. So that would just be a quick guide. So here are just some real benefits around rather than being reactive, it's more about responding. So I think it was 7 highly effective habits of successful people. It's not the name of the book, but it's something like that. And one of the things in the book was that successful people do is they respond rather than react, like verse react. So rather than just reacting to life, they become aware and then respond proactively. They call it responding proactively. So that gives you better relationships, inner calm and emotional stability. So you see some examples here. Relationship, you stop pushing people away or clinging to them out of fear. You connect with honesty and presence. Instead of ghosting someone after disagreement, you say, I felt overwhelmed and needed space. I care about this connection. Now, this is so important. I see this very every day, this sort of communication. So to be able to really be vulnerable rather than just ghost someone or push them away or defend and yell is it brings more closeness in relationships. Inner calm and stability. So it doesn't hijack us if we're someone that can be like quite reactive. We learn to ride them learn to ride them instead. Yeah, so we learn to ride the waves, I call them, with emotions. You wake up feeling anxious, but instead of spiraling, you check in with your body, breathe, respond gently to yourself. You move through the day grounded instead of reactive. So it gives you the opportunity to check in and have a plan for your day rather than get up, I'm anxious, go, 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 which is many of us can do in life. Clear communication. So when we're in the fear response, it's very difficult to communicate clearly. So examples of this is saying, you never listen to me. That's communicating from fear. I'm feeling unheard right now, and it's bringing up old pain. So that is more communicating clearly. Better decision making. You may have heard of making decisions based on fear or based on clarity and feeling present and grounded. When we make decisions based on fear, it can come from panic, desperation, shame, or guilt. Whenever we do this, it tends to end poorly because it creates more chaos in our life. It might create more breakup in relationships. It often can create more work for us. So it's generally has a negative impact on us if we make decisions based on fear. So rather than saying yes out of obligation, you may be able to pause, check in, and say, no, I've done this many times before. And so everything I'm telling you, I practice as well. And it's a practice because I'm absolutely not perfect at this, and no one is. It's all about just practicing these things. So yeah, being able to check in and say, do I really want to do that? And honoring the part of you that might not want to stay back at work, or, maybe that part that might fear saying no. Increase self-trust and more freedom and authenticity there as well. So there's just so many benefits to pausing and becoming aware before we react. Why is it so hard to respond to your fear with awareness, self-control, and empowerment? Well, what happens is where the wounding originated from is generally we have felt really powerless in that state, and our coping mechanism helped us survive. So wherever it was created, that fear response that you had, maybe the flight or fight back or shut down, that really did help you survive in moments of real stress. And so it's now about reconditioning ourselves and almost rewiring ourselves to be able to respond in the present moment in a way that's not from our coping mechanism. So, based on reactivities rooted in past experiences where you may have felt helpless, unsafe, or shamed. The meaning, generally subconscious until you explore in therapy, you placed on those experiences like, I'm not good enough, people will leave me, or it's not safe to speak up. I say subconscious because if we're reacting from our fear, we don't even know that meaning's there until we do therapy and work with someone that we feel safe with, or we can explore it ourselves if we're able to do that, until we start to explore and become curious as to what's underneath the fear. Identity, the meaning becomes part of your identity. So our fear response can create real success in life. So a lot of people can be in fight flight and be a CEO of a company, or build things in fight flight, or have a business in fight flight. So it can become part of our identity, and losing that part can feel scary and unfamiliar. So what a fear-based belief is repeated enough, it becomes our sense of self. It's not just I feel unsafe speaking up. It's this is who I am. I'm someone who can't handle rejection. Letting go of that meaning requires ego flexibility and nervous system safety, which many people haven't developed that yet, because it feels unfamiliar. Safety has been rewired to familiarity, not truth, which is what I'm speaking into in that as well. So the nervous system confuses familiar with safe. This is very common in people that I find who have really suffered complex trauma, who find that they can get really, it's almost like swept up in the fear and not be able to see the reality of what's happening because it's feels familiar to go to our default coping mechanism, and but it's not necessarily safe. So it does feel safe because it feels familiar, but it's almost like a false safety. If you grow up around chaos, criticism, or emotional neglect, those patterns become your nervous system's normal. This is really common. This is why we can be drawn to people in relationships that can treat us poorly, because we don't see when they're not treating us very well, like the subtleties around that, because we're so used to being spoken to in negative ways. We often see it as it's kind of just norm. So even when a new, more regulated perspective is available, it can feel foreign, threatening, or unreal. This is very common in personal development. We hit crossroads where changing our identity can feel really threatening, because it's trying to create a new self around a new safety, and it feels very uncertain and out of control. Flexibility requires regulation. So, in order for us to have, this is something I was speaking into before, in order for us to be able to observe our experience, we need to have a part of ourselves that can be regulated as well. So, if I can stop, breathe, come back to regulation when I'm feeling a little bit fearful, then I'm showing myself that I'm not getting swept up in the fear. So perspective shifting, the ability to say maybe there's another way to see this, is a ventral vagal regulation function. So I always talk about the fear response on a ladder, and at the top of the ladder is where we feel calm. We're not in a fear response. We are open, connected, and when we're in that space, we can take in information. I'm more likely to receive support, love, care in that space when my ventral function is on. And that's generally, you'll feel that when you've done something like yoga or meditation, or you've gone for a swim, or you've gone on a holiday and you're feeling really calm and good about life. That's the time when you're more open to new ideas and perspectives. When we are in the fear response, fight, flight, or freeze, we lose access to curiosity, empathy, and mental flexibility. So that is one of the biggest things I see, is the inability to empathize with someone, often when our fight flight comes in, which is why a lot of people ghost or push other people away, because if I'm in my own experience, I can't empathize with where someone else is at. And I'm not curious either. I'm just trying to survive. The brain also locks in black and white thinking with a survival lens: safe, unsafe, good, bad, right, wrong. So here's just some examples. You can even feel into these examples of how to tune into your body. Often it can be very simple, but our brain wants to take us away to do jobs, and always has something to do in a day. So we're often holding that tension of slowing down and being okay with not always doing. So what happens? You feel upset or on edge. What thoughts am I having right now? So that's a question you can ask if you're feeling this. Something's making me feel uneasy. What are my thought processes at the moment? What do you notice in your body? Tight chest, clenched jaw, tense shoulders. Feelings and emotions you might experience: anxiety, sadness, irritation. And then why it matters. So pausing to check in helps you create space before reacting. This is the first step towards self-awareness. So it's really simple, but it's like once we're swept up in a fear response and it's taken over, it can be really difficult to just stop and pause. And sometimes we kind of need a partner or a friend to say to us, hey, can we just stop and pause and slow down for a moment? I'm noticing you're a little heightened and I really want to hear what you have to say, but I just also would like to take a few deep breaths with you. I mean, some of us can get upset with that, but some of us can really benefit from that slowing down and that break in circuit. So here are some other examples. If you're interested in getting these examples, just let me know through email, and I can send you these examples of like what to do when your mind is racing. Do I feel safe or unsafe? That's a question you can ask yourself. Racing heart, shallow breath, tension in chest, fear, overwhelm, confusion. So that's what the feeling would be. So overwhelm or confusion underneath that. And then fear shows up physically. Noticing it helps you understand what your body is trying to say. There's all these benefits of why you can ask these questions. Okay. How to communicate when you feel scared. Things that we can start to practice is communicating from I statements. I notice I'm feeling unsafe right now. So if I wasn't to communicate this, the opposite to this would be feeling unsafe, not noticing it in myself and wanting to flee or shutting down and just sort of just going quiet. And the other person that we may be in connection with either feels misunderstood, not seen, and then we create this co-creation where if I'm not expressing from I statements and my vulnerability in my inner world, I might be shutting down and the other person just keeps speaking louder and louder and louder and gets more activated. So then it becomes this co-creation of I've activated this other person's now activating me further, and then it just gets worse and worse. So the benefits of communicating clearly with I statements is if I'm activated, I can say, I'm noticing I'm feeling unsafe right now. And to share that with someone who's safe and who would meet you there can be a really powerful moment of just really letting down the guard and allowing curiosity to come in. Naming your emotional state helps you connect to your body. It also allows others to respond to you with more understanding. I feel defensive and I want to pull away. So that's another way we can say those sort of things. Saying this out loud builds trust. It shows you are willing to own your feelings rather than blame others. I've actually used these statements myself personally. My thoughts are telling me that you don't care about me. That is a statement I've used for a friend that I work with, and what I have found is that it really diffuses any further conflict because she knows that I'm not believing the story, but that's how I feel in that moment. Sharing your thoughts with curiosity, not blame, opens the door for honest conversation and deep connection. I feel hurt, like I might not matter to you right now. Vulnerable, honesty helps others see your true experience. This is where emotional repair and intimacy begins. So next up is who is safe to be vulnerable with. Often, people like myself are like, you've got to have I statements and talk about your feelings and be vulnerable. It's not, if you have not done this before, it's definitely not safe to do it with anyone, because the reason why you haven't done this before is because it wasn't safe originally. You were punished, pushed away, shamed. There were consequences. So now when you practice doing this, it would be all around how can I practice this in a safe space? So whether it's with a therapist, whether it's with a friend, a partner, having this discussion with them. So you want someone who listens without interrupting or judging. A close friend or present and respectful person. Being heard without judgment builds emotional safety and reduces shame. So someone who validates your experience, there's a difference between validating and enabling, and it's a fine line. So it is an art to validate someone's experience as well, without enabling poor behavior in return as well. Validation rewires your beliefs that your emotions matter. It helps you feel supported instead of dismissed. So validation, just as an example of that, could be someone could be really upset about an experience and feel like, so let's say, feel like they didn't feel cared for. or didn't feel safe in a situation. And so they ran away. They ran away from it. And what I would do is I would get really curious about their experience. That's how I validate an experience, because I want to know what's happening, and I genuinely want to know what's happening for them. So curiosity really helps someone feel heard, but also process what happened, what actually happened in that situation. And then later on, once you've processed it, you've been heard, you've been witnessed, that's when we decide, okay, what could I have done differently in that situation? Remains grounded when you express big feelings, so they don't take it personally. That really means I can be grounded even if you're angry, even if you're crying or you're sad. I can be okay. Um, Calm people help your nervous system regulate, so that's co-regulating. Their stability invites your system to settle. That's happening on a subconscious level. Our nervous system connects with someone else's who's regulated, and also who's not, so we can feel unsafe around people too. Doesn't try to fix or shut you down. A partner, friend who can just listen. You don't always need advice, just someone who can witness your truth. This builds deep trust and connection. So the people like this, it's sometimes hard to find people like this. This is why therapists exist. So starting with therapy can be a great start. Okay, so checking in when you feel triggered. Here are some really simple steps that you can start with. And I say simple because it can be very simple. We don't need to overcomplicate it. Notice the shift. All of a sudden, you'll feel this shift in your energy. You may feel heavy. You may feel scattered. You may feel a big shift, a physiological adrenaline rush. It can be subtle, and it can also be more of a big shift in your nervous system. Tune into your body. So you can ask yourself, what sensations are present? What do I feel? Where do I feel tension, pressure, discomfort? Just do a body scan. And then identify the fear response. Am I trying to fight? So a fear response of fight is in sympathetic. It's defend, argue, control. So that's generally a fight response. Am I trying to flee? Do I want to pull away? Do I just want to get away from this person or this situation or environment? Do I want to ghost? Do I want to I just don't want anything to do with them. That's the flee response. That's the flight. Am I trying to fawn? Do I want to fix this and please and over accommodate? So that sounds like, what do you need? I'll do anything. Tell me what you need and I'll do that for you. Yep, yeah, I can stay back. I'll do whatever you need to be happy. That's generally us fawning and shutting down our own needs. Am I feeling frozen? Am I just going foggy and numb and I don't know what to say? Generally, when we start to shut down, a functional freeze, there's also like functional freeze, shutdown, and then there's actual shutdown. Functional freeze is more like I'm going foggy. I can't take in information. I can't even hear what you're saying. I may even be dissociating. And I find it hard to speak what's in my mind. So I've got I have what I want to say, but I'm finding it really difficult to say it. And often it can come out as, I don't know, I just don't know, or it can come as silence, like we just go silent. So that's more, we're starting to freeze at that point. Name the emotion. So once you've got to know that, like what response you're having, you may be coming back into regulation, and you might be able to start to name your emotion that's underneath the fear response. When they said that to me, I felt really hurt. I felt sad with that. Just being able to name can really, so even doing this process will start to bring you into regulation as well. Communicate from self-awareness, not fear. So we've gone through that. So communicating from fear is, you clearly don't care about me. This always happens. And then communicating from self-awareness is, I'm noticing I'm feeling unsafe and my mind is telling me you don't care. I don't want to act from that fear. So it's really vulnerable, but it can be a really beautiful way to invite curiosity in. Okay, so then breaking free from the identity that no longer serves you. Often our personality and our identity is really, we hold on to that because it feels familiar and safe. And that's what I was talking about at the start. In order for us to come out of these fear responses and these coping mechanisms and be able to move through them to achieve our goals, we often need to shift parts of our identity that are really connected with these fear responses because they were once beneficial, and then often when we're older, they're not serving us as well. So strengthen your observer. That's how you can start to understand your identity more, by having an observer that observes your personality. So it observes your experience and who you are at the moment, and what you're like in different environments, and what you're like with your partner, what you're like with your friends. So having this observer online starts to enable you to have some separation from from what you're really identified with. And that's where we strengthen our observer through counselling, through a coach, through yoga, sound healing. So anything that gives you a grounded, regulated perspective will support you to strengthen your observer. Reiki, kinesiology, breathwork, nature, guided meditations, walking, grounding tools. So first step to respond with awareness versus reacting from fear and survival mode. You can start with learning how to master self-regulation. If this is very difficult, start with co-regulation. Self-regulation is the ability to regulate your nervous system on your own. This can be super difficult if you have had trauma in your past. To start with self-regulation is just almost impossible. So I really recommend starting this process, or anytime you feel quite activated in the fear response, to regulate with someone else if and when you can. So this might be a therapist, a coach, it might be a friend, it might be animals, it might be a partner, but it's also like yoga, anything that has other people there that can help your nervous system, because we're all responding to each other's nervous system. When you're in safe spaces like that, it gives you the ability to come to a grounded place and have more of your observer online. So when you're more grounded, you can observe your experience. When we're in fear response, it's very hard for us to have a different perspective. Okay, so that's all the information. Now we're at questions. Does anyone have any questions? Kate, go for it. Love to hear from you. Oh, I have to unmute. I have to ask you to unmute.
Technology.
We did it.
We did it. Oh, I thought that was very interesting.
What did you find interesting?
Just all of it. But well, I thought it was really interesting because I've always felt really crappy about the fact that I find it very hard to regulate myself.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm missing something, or I'm, I don't know, needy, but it sounds like, well, it's a great fault of mine, if you know what I mean.
We are not really made to regulate on our own. Like, it's not something that when we're born to co-regulate. We're born to regulate. But what can happen is, if our caregivers are not regulated themselves, and they're quite anxious or shut down, their nervous system connects with ours. So that will create, it's a co-regulation. So as a child, your imprint and conditioning can be around that nervous system as well.
Yeah.
So now you're co-regulating with new people. And that's probably the start, right? That we want to start.
I think it highlighted that I wrote down that I have to be around calm people.
Yeah.
Like, really think about that. Because, like, yeah, I've got to be honest, people that aren't calm do jangle me. But, like, I just thought that's just a thing for me, my problem. Like, as in, I'm too sensitive. Yeah, like, if so that was a no. And then I was like, this co-regulation. I don't know, like, you reckon animals? Because like Fee, sometimes my partner, if she's lost it and I've lost it, then we can't sort of. What's your
Yeah,
suggestion there? Or a friend, or
yeah. Great question.
and then I
So,
feel bad that I'm reaching out to people like I can't manage my own emotions. I guess, yeah.
well, what I like, I know that we have a bit of a plan around this, and so having a list of people that you can call, absolutely, that would be number one. It's okay that you would need support from other people. There's nothing wrong with that, and I think
Mhm.
it's important that we know that if we need co-regulation, there's a reason for it. It's important to have it as you're doing that. So what I would suggest is when you're feeling good and you're not in that space of like, oh, I'm sort of going into fight, flight, or shutdown. I would practice mastering a little bit of meditation or
Yeah, I realize I've sort of look, as you know, I've had a bit of a hard time, and I've sort of dropped those things a little bit, like, and so I was like building up that, making a real point of those things are like non-negotiables, kind of like the meditation, the yoga, and stuff to get you regulated to be able to see what's going. Like,
yeah.
it's a lot though, but
Yeah, you've done really well with your observer. So because you've
I'm
done those
noticing
things.
stuff. Even like morning, I was like, why am I getting so angry about that? Like the
Yeah.
alpaca eating the goat food from over the fence, and I'm like, hey, like, but I shouldn't be that annoyed about that. There's like something underneath it. Or Fee stayed away for one night, and I was like, here, like,
Hmm.
what do I do now? Like all night, I was like fiddle-dee-dee, like, and I didn't have internet or anything, so I didn't have my like usual, like, so I read
Yeah.
it and I just sort of like ate. Yeah, but it was just really, really interesting to have to sit with myself, and I felt safe, kind of, but like I was like, oh, actually, I got more pets, so yeah, maybe I do. I
There
naturally
you
go
go.
towards.
And what did you notice in your body when Fee wasn't there? What would you say?
I
Was it?
felt like I was like a little, like little Kate again. I think like that mum had gone away or something like
Mhm.
that. It's ridiculous. Yeah, like because we're
It's not.
always together. I didn't know, like, but I also then was like, I've got this. I realized that's what was going on. I was like, I've got this, little Kate. Look, I'm pretty resourceful.
I love that you have a dialogue with little Kate, and you said that. That's fantastic.
And I
It's
was
so.
like, and also like, we got some goats and we got some dogs and stuff. So we're pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah,
But I
yeah.
was like, wow, this is so interesting. And because usually Fee's around, I don't have those silent moments where I'm just like, oh, this is interesting. Like,
So what you've just told me is you self-regulated.
oh, okay. All right. Well, it's
That's
all,
self-regulating.
you know?
And self-regulating can be utilizing other tools too, by the way.
Yeah.
It's not going away and being on your own and sitting in isolation. It's
Yeah.
knowing what you need and bringing that in. So you were like pets, and then you spoke to little Kate, and you read a book. So you actually self-regulated in that space
Oh, okay. Is that
because the observer is online.
what I found really interesting? I'm hogging this too much. Sorry. I feel like I've got like a cold, and I feel like I think when you asked how do I feel in the beginning, I was kind of like a bit shut down, I think.
Huh?
Like, it was like, I don't have time for this shit, or it's too much or something. Anyway, but it's so good. Um, oh man, I want to just quickly get out of here so someone else can have a go.
That's okay. Take your time.
Oh, just how the way that you brought up makes you believe this stuff. How can we like undo that stuff? Because I believe every example, not good enough, can't get. My friend came here and she's known me since my childhood. You were talking about feedback in our last thing. And I was like, oh, I think all these things. And she's like, and she nearly cried. She's like, really? Are you kidding me? Like, I was like, yeah. And even you saying that I'm not that doesn't really, it's like, it's so ingrained. She's
Yeah.
since I was 7 or something like that. Yeah, so it's just really interesting to hear someone else's point of view on it. But it was like, it's ingrained. So,
Yeah, so as you're strengthening your observer, I often with those ingrained belief systems, they generally come in with activation. So you might be in your day-to-day life, and then all of a sudden something happens that brings on this physiological fear response, and then underneath that is, I don't feel good enough in this situation. So
Yeah.
I would work with that specific situation to tap into that process. And then you would start to identify needs and anything that's unresolved
It's
there.
sort of starting to make a lot of sense, kind of like, because,
Yeah.
whole introvert thing, but it's probably because I feel inadequate in a situation, or I don't have the right clothes, or there's a whole bunch of other things in there other than just want to get the hell out of here, or someone's going to, make fun of me, or I don't know. Don't
Yeah.
know. Yeah.
So I just want to get the hell out of here is the flight response, yeah? So that, and you're right, underneath that is all sorts of things happening. So
All my nervous, I've just been not until therapy living in the fight and flight and the shutdown the whole time, which is bizarre. Sounds bizarre.
yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you
So,
for
yeah.
sharing. Do you have, is that,
I don't know. I think I need to noodle over this one for a while. Like watch it again, send me the notes, all that stuff.
sure. Yeah, I can do that.
I think I feel it's very poignant right now, if that's the right word. I don't know. Well,
Yeah, I'll
yeah.
do that.
Okay.
Thanks, Kate. Has anyone else got any questions around what they just heard? Maybe anything around your own experience that you would like a bit of clarity around? And it's okay if you don't. Or even I would like to hear what interested you in this topic. Glenda, come on down.
Well, in session, we have come across my fear all the way through. It's still there. It still debilitates me at times. I discovered a big thing the other day as to why I do not like closed doors, which is something that has been for years and years and years. And we were talking, my son and his partner and myself, about like fear and how, say, somebody has broken into the house, or, you felt sort of really unsafe or something like that. And I said my experience, which was years ago, I was at home alone. My mate had gone out and my door was closed and somebody broke in. I woke up with a torch in my face. Somebody had broken in, opened my door expecting nobody to be home. I couldn't see anybody behind it because, of course, the bright light. I just saw a frame. And then I sort of said, what the whatever? And they ran out of the house, through the front door, and out they went. And then it all of a sudden hit me. That is the reason why I don't like closed doors.
Yes, that's an imprint. Imprint, right? So
yes,
that association. Yeah.
yes, yes. It was massive, and it was just like I felt so much at ease more after that because I discovered what it was, but never thought about it beforehand.
Naming it, you were
Yes.
able to, feel more at ease. Wow, just even naming it, it's amazing.
Yeah, yeah. And I guess at the moment for me, I've missed seeing you because of different reasons and stuff. I'm going through a few things health-wise at the moment that's, again, quite debilitating.
Yes.
And that is affecting me tremendously at the moment. But just talking about it and being able to actually share a little bit on that, especially with what we've gone through with fear and everything like that, it's trying to keep your mind focused and not concentrating so much on the fear.
Yes, absolutely. And I definitely see that with you, like being able to be witness in it and seen and heard and express like what's happening for you. And you're saying that when you do that, it can support you to not be so much in the fear when you're able to speak.
Yeah, there's no way in a million years that I would have shared anything in front of people, as you well know. Now I sort of think it's a really important thing to do, because it not only helps yourself, but it could be also good for other people that not feel intimidated or like that you're going to feel, oh, they don't want to listen to me. Similar to Kate, actually. These things as a child are ingrained, and it's about witnessing your observer, and a lot of the times we do really well without noticing until you speak about it, like in this type of situation. And it's like, oh, I'm not doing too bad after all.
Good.
You know?
Yes.
Mm.
Yeah. I love what you bring in around now that you voice your experience rather than shutting down. Can I just ask, what has been the difference for you on a, even just like, what has been different for you from going into like maybe shut down and not speaking about it at all to being able to express it now?
Oh, I guess not feeling as if people aren't, or not people, I don't spread it everywhere, that, you know, I'm not going to be listened to. And I guess now it's like, you know, I've got nothing to lose. And I guess I can usually sort of feel when I'm not being heard or whatever. So I won't do that with that person again.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much not giving a crap, really.
So
And
it's like,
just going, I can do this. And yeah, I pick who I, of course,
yes.
share. But also it's good to share just your whole how you're really feeling inside and how things are affecting you. And that's fear.
Yeah. I'm wondering if it also takes you out of the cycle of fear, being able to express it, like rather than being in that they won't want to listen to me, that might keep you in that cycle beforehand where you maybe kept it inside. Now that you can express it more, it's taking you out of that fear. Maybe that's just me making it up.
Look, pretty much, yeah. It helps, because nobody knows what's happening to you underneath until in this type of situation. With these masterclasses are just so amazingly good, because I don't feel uncomfortable sharing. I feel safe in this atmosphere with you and everybody. And that's important.
Yes, the safety aspect. Absolutely, yeah. Having this,
Yeah.
it's crucial. It's especially when starting out with this, isn't it? Very important. I've got to a point where it's not as crucial for me, and I'll still share my opinion, but it took me a while to get to this place of being okay with judgment, being okay with someone's projection, being okay and not taking it personally. So it took a lot of practice to get to this point, but I started with safety. I started with people that would really hear me and see me and witness me. So
Yes. Yeah.
amazing. Thanks, Glenda.
Thank you.
Hey. Does anyone else have? Yeah, go for it. Law. Is that right? Oh, are we pressing it at the same time? There we go.
There you go. There we are. Oh, thank you. Well, talking about safety, well, you've got to start somewhere, and sometimes you have a certain fear if something comes up, like what you were saying, or coming onto for the first time, going to a new place, or coming onto this. I didn't have that, but overall, it's weird. It comes and goes, but for a very, very long time, I've never felt safe anywhere, not safe in the world. So what would you suggest to how to address that?
Yeah, and that's a great question. So you're saying you haven't, for a long time, you feel like you haven't felt safe anywhere.
No, always on edge. Yeah.
Always on edge at home, like everywhere that you felt that.
Yeah.
I would, what comes to mind is finding little glimmers of safety, because often there will be a part of you that says this is all of me, and it feels true. It feels true that I do not feel safe anywhere in the world. What I'm wondering is if there's a protector part of you that's kind of keeping you from noticing and accessing safety. So if there's a part that's, the protector parts are usually there because it's safer for me to be on edge than to let go. So often if we start to work with this protector part, okay, there's nowhere I feel safe, I would start to explore and ask questions. Okay, tell me more. What do you mean there's nowhere that I feel safe? What do you mean by that? And then I'd get curious about that. Okay, so what does that part of me look like that doesn't feel safe anywhere in the world? And you'd start to access it and talk to it in a way where it's not all of me, it's part of me. Because even your ability to observe this question in itself tells me there is some safety. Your ability to be on here tells me there is some safety. Because if you felt completely unsafe, the part of your brain to be able to communicate and to be able to hear and take in information would be shut down as well. So I think that's how I would navigate it.
I think, yeah, something I do see, like I flip back and forth to the little girl when 6-7-year-old, no, I might have been younger, and like if I see how brave she was, and then at those moments, indeed, there is that safety because she was unstoppable and she was brave. She wouldn't have stopped for anything. But I think is that conditioning and the repetition of years of experiences that has built me to here, and then now it's getting back to that safety for longer periods of time instead of that can't breathe, there it is again. I think just practice. I think
absolutely.
In what you said.
And what you're saying too is if we feel unsafe, and let's say we don't even know that about ourselves, so we've been in life making decisions from this place of feeling unsafe, then often we can come across experiences that are unsafe, like you were saying, so then it reinforces I'm unsafe.
Yeah.
And so exactly what you're saying, so I would really start to explore ways of feeling safe, and then making decisions in that grounded present place. So the first step would be to explore, have a bit of an exploration experiment with what makes me feel regulated. And when I say regulated, calm, present, grounded, open. When I feel calm, what's happening? Do you find that you have those moments of feeling calm and grounded?
I can go to those places, and I've got those times, like even when Glenda was saying things, it's like I've really understood, and it's like, oh yeah, yep, oh no, that's what I can do, and then it's like a surge of, oh yes, it's all gonna come all right and be good, and then all of a sudden, no, that fear takes over again.
Yeah. So that's a glimmer. What you've just experienced is a glimmer. Yes. Then the fear coming in. What you can start to do, and like this would be a practice, and if I was to work with you, this is what I would practice, is making that distance further and further apart, which is what you said, is like getting more of that safety. So that's often what meditation is also about, is widening our window of tolerance. Like that's what regulating our nervous system, it's widening our experience to feel safe. So that's probably what I would also experiment with, because we can absolutely recondition, rewire ourselves, rewire our nervous system to feel safe. So if you've got those glimmers, you can start to know. What a technique that I found was, when I close my eyes and I'm just settled in and grounding, how long is it until a thought comes in that's either negative or stress related, or, how long is it until I get those even maybe disturbing thoughts? It might be 10 seconds, 15 seconds, 30 seconds. You're just even noticing that, and that might vary depending on what's happening in your life as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you. A great question. Okay. Anyone else? Anyone else have any other questions? We're probably finishing it up there. I really enjoyed this session with you all. Some rich stuff in there. And if you want any further information on the slides, just email me, because I won't remember if you sort of just ask me to do it from here, and I can give that to you. But yeah, you can also book in a session if you even more want to dive deeper into the fear response. And I'll see you all next Monday if you come along.
Thank you.
You're welcome. See you later.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Samantha. Bye. Bye, Glenda. Bye, Kate.